Jerry's kind of preface behind this whole thing was surveying standards and how much they differ between state to state, and even for like Nevada, we're different between jurisdictions, right? Like so between entities, even Reno has their own requirements sometimes versus Las Vegas and Clark County, and so I mean you can really go, you know, whether starting at the state and going to local level, you could really go into the weeds. But I don't know if you
Yeah,
wanted to kind of add to that, Jerry, but.
yeah. One of the reasons I kind of threw this out as an idea is because whenever I do a presentation in a different state or whatever,
Yeah.
I try to research their statutes and the code and some of the common law stuff, so I can kind of, when I talk about legal stuff, it could be more in the context of that framework. And it really surprises me coming from Wisconsin how different things are when I go to different jurisdictions. And then when I hear somebody that says, I just got my seventh license, I'm thinking that means that person's got to be well versed in 7 different jurisdictions standards. And I have a tough enough time as it is, wrestling with one and then kind of learning more. So I thought it'd be kind of interesting just to see how similar within our profession, what we do, how similar our requirements are, but then also how diverse they are, and it may be kind of what drives that stuff. So that's why I came up with that list of questions and stuff, and that's just like as a rough framework that I think everybody's seeing. And I was just kind of interested to get more exposure, to actually what's going on.
Yeah, I grabbed the Word doc. I just kind of threw in, so I can share the screen really quick, but this is kind of what Jerry was talking about, what he kind of put together on a rough one. But I guess we could pretty much start with just letter A right off the bat, like specific closure requirements are hard numbers. I was trying to save down what Josh threw in the chat as well, so we could share some of those. But um, it's pulling up right now. But let's see what else. Nettie, do you have anything pulled up for Wisconsin? You want to maybe just start off with?
I do. I pulled up
Yeah.
AE7 because that's kind of our minimum standards.
There you go.
Yeah.
I got it. You can share. Hold on. Now you can share.
So, I guess, do you want me to find like the answer to the questions or just like kind of talk?
Yeah, whatever you want. Yeah, I mean, or pending. Oh yeah, so Mike, I had those two for Arizona, but pending some new ones. But yeah, we can either talk about it, or you can share, or just at least cite the code or something. So if somebody's watching it later, they can look it up. But
well, we currently have 3 sets of minimum standards, so I was just sharing them.
Here we go. I'll share the screen.
If there's 3 sets of minimum standards, one's got to be more minimum than the other, or the others are.
Well, we have a very old, so the ones that are active right now are from 2002.
Yep.
And unfortunately, they were adopted from a standalone document, so it's an all or nothing kind of thing. In 2014, we adopted those, APLS did, but they were shot down by the Board of Technical Registration at the time. And the new ones are a joint effort between the BTR and APLS that started in 2019 that we're finally ready to get into, and it's a complete change. It puts things into administrative rules so we can edit them line item, and we're not stuck with an old document that just, we can't do anything with. I've never been in Arizona. This would be the first time we've ever had any standards in administrative code, like Nevada does or whatever.
Yeah.
This is a new thing.
And it doesn't, so it doesn't specify. So like going with question A, like specify closure requirements as far as related to traversing. Or
so the current standards are 2,500ths of a foot plus or minus 100 parts per million.
For adjacent corners.
And that's for, for the current survey, the new survey, whatever you're doing. and I don't remember what we did with. Sorry, I've been back and forth on these damn things.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. There's a letter.
Yeah, that's the current standard.
Yep.
And you wouldn't. I've done enforcement advisory in the state since 2004, and you would not. Well, you probably would believe some of the bullshit that I've heard on that one. That
Yeah.
according to some surveyors, our minimum standards say blatantly that if a monument is found to be out more than 25 hundredths of a foot than what I measure it as, I have to set a new corner.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Gotta love that pincushion.
I was just gonna say that. So your minimum standards require a pincushion.
No, that's but
Yeah.
that number that
They
number is not
don't,
an
but
but
yeah.
that kind of number is not an indication of where the monument is. It's an
Yes.
indication of how good your survey is.
That
Right.
yeah, exactly. So we even when we did this originally, because people didn't, this was back in 02, that whole, 95% confidence level thing was still relatively new. We had Jack Kessler, who was the city surveyor for Kingman. He wrote a paper on it, and we did a couple seminars on it to try to get people to understand what that meant and how sloppy that really was for your own survey, unless you're staying within 100 foot of your instrument there. But yeah, it confused people quite a bit.
Before that standard was adopted, did you have any other standard? Any
Yeah, so
recommend-
we had I think the oldest was like 89, I think.
When they were while Mike's looking for that, when they did these O2 standards, they made a big PR pusher all around, even even Southern Nevada, to make sure that those that in Las Vegas that might be doing work in like Northern Arizona would definitely know the minimum standards. So they did a huge PR push. It was Mike and Stewart. What was
Yeah.
yeah, there was a couple of them that ran around the state and did
1998, we had standards.
I was thinking it was 97. Yeah, okay, 98.
Well, I think they were actually there, and 89 was I think that was the first that they had.
Yeah.
March of 1989. And then, I think our ones all the way up through the existing ones are all pretty common. But yeah.
Yeah, I was looking to see what the new standard 2500 is.
Yeah, we took that out
Yeah.
because of what it was, people just not being able to comprehend what that was. So
Indiana standards can be found. Oh, 685. Okay.
Yeah. Georgia's a tenth of a foot, urban blocks, 2,500 suburban subdivisions, and half a foot in rural areas, unless it's abutting highway or things of that nature.
Yeah. So Nevada's similar. We're working on so this is the revisions, but this is our current. So we have ones for, like you said, just like Josh, we have high, low,
Yeah.
rural, low rural. So anywhere from 500s to 5/10ths as well. And then depends on what you're, from a boundary survey aspect. I think that was kind of what Jerry was alluding to. It was mostly boundary survey, but ours are codified for topo surveys. We even have standards for construction as well. So
yeah, and our standards are boundary only.
Yeah.
They're not meant for anything else. As a matter of fact, it has a couple times caused some confusion because of the topographic survey component of it. So
yeah, doesn't like your mic for some reason, Aaron. I just muted you again, but
And ours are broken up for all horizontal measurements. We didn't specify what the heck you were doing. If it's horizontal measurement, these were the accuracies, and we have them for vertical also.
Man,
So
that's a good idea.
there's two of me on here. Can you, as the administrator,
Yeah.
delete one?
Yeah,
Find your other guy. Let me find your other guy. Let me find your doppelganger. See where he's at.
It's the one without a video.
He's the one without a video. Where is let me see. Let me stop sharing. Go over here.
For some reason, I can't do it.
Oh, okay.
And I apologize.
Oh, good. Let's try this one. I wonder. I might have just deleted the wrong one. let's remove him twice. All right, you'll have to jump back on now. Sorry, Aaron. So Frank, Rob jumped on. Rob, we kind of got started, and we wanted to talk about minimum standards, but I'd love to hear Rob's take on minimum standards for California. Or Tim's, but go for it, Rob. Because we chatted about this the other day.
All right, I'm gonna mute you. Hey everybody, how you doing? Sorry to hang on a second. Let me call you back. All right, sorry about that. I got field crew talking to me in one ear and you guys talking on the other. So yeah, California is interesting because minimum standards for mapping are not codified. So it doesn't say, oh, if your measurements don't match record measurements by a tenth or 2/10 or a foot or whatever the value is, you have to file a map or you have to do this. So they're not codified with a cookie cutter type of number value that somebody came up with because they like that number for some reason, or what have you, or like Alta standards where it's you have to meet the so many parts per million or what have you. I don't obviously do those, right? Plus or minus, what is it, 700s plus or minus 50 parts per million? Is that right?
Yep. See? You don't know it, but you know it.
I don't do them, but sometimes I sit in on those sessions just because I like learning other stuff. But yeah, we don't have the codified standards. So if your professional opinion, and that's what our records of survey are out here, are our professional opinions. If your professional opinion is that the monuments that you found are the original monuments, or they represent the locations that they're purported to, and you accept them, then you just note that on your map and move along, right? You just it's kind of a weird animal where you say, well, when do you decide how do you decide if something is a material discrepancy, right? That's a code word in our LS Act here in California. Is if there is a material discrepancy, then you must file a record of survey. But what constitutes a material discrepancy? If I'm retracing a public land survey from the 1880s and I hit it, maybe I find original corners, original monuments, original GLO stones that look like they are in the place they're supposed to be, and they fit any accessories appropriately. But my overall distance isn't 2640. It's 2660 or 20, let's say it's 2650. So I miss it by 10 feet. Is that a material discrepancy that I'm concerned about? And I think that as a licensed professional out here, we got to look and see what the whole entirety of the information is. And if I say, well, for what they were doing and the tools they had to work with and the requirements of the instructions that they were to follow for that time, and I come along with modern technology, an XYZ 10,000 GPS, all constellations satellite receiver pair, and I determine them to be wrong by 10 feet. And I emphasize that because clearly they're not. I have a different measurement than they do. And I accept the original monuments and I move it on. So was one of those public lands guys like Fondren blowing me up when I said that?
No, I am public land surveyor, but I'm not a government surveyor. So
Oh, but you're a public lands guy.
yeah,
You deal with that a lot more than I do.
I think the biggest problem that we have here with that is, that one of the things that we don't teach enough is when not to use that damn manual, when you're supposed to stay away from it,
Yeah, true.
I've seen guys, for years because I came from rural Arizona, northwestern state, Mojave, worked for the county surveyor's department up there, private sector. And when I always heard that Maricopa County was the great, state to work in. It was everything was right down here, and that couldn't have been more fucking wrong than anything. I see guys down here that if you take them and put them out in a rural area where they actually have to survey something, they're completely lost. And I've seen many times here where guys have proportioned in missing quarter corners when there's 5-10 subdivisions tied to that corner with massive amounts of record information getting you back to the same point within a tenth or two, and they're proportioning shit that doesn't even no original monumentation anywhere within miles. No, it's all been transferred into private land, so it gets kind of scary in Maricopa with that. So
Oh, that is scary.
I guess we're wanting a little bit with respect to, I guess the question, the original, what I envisioned for the question was not so much how much the monument has to be out before you decide to start the original one. It's when whatever you've accepted, when you perform the survey to tie all that together and generate the bearings and the distances and all that kind of stuff, how good does that survey have to be? Are there any numbers with respect to that? Does it have to close
No.
with 1 in 10,000, or like in the Arizona one, the whatever it was, 700 some foot plus or minus 25 parts per million? I guess what I was looking at that from a resurvey standard, are there any guidelines or requirements that say how good does your survey have to be, not how good does your interpretation of the evidence
Right.
have to?
Okay, then from a California's perspective, generally, I don't recall any state regulation on that. There may be local or county regulations having to do with closures of a survey for a subdivision. And if they're going to ask the question, how good does your survey need to be? Are we going to be talking about precisions or accuracies? And
We only have an hour left, Rob. No,
Yep.
going down
So-
that rabbit hole. We're not going down that rabbit hole.
That's what we're
Right,
trying to
but
get a
if
handle
you're
on
talking
is
about
how
precision
are these things
ratios.
expressed in different states.
Yeah.
You know, because
Yeah.
I know I'm very discovered in Wisconsin, but when we're talking about original surveys, it's one thing. We have subdivision regulations in our statutes that
Yeah.
say how good our surveys have to be for that. But for resurveys, which is for lots or meets and bounds or condominiums or anything like that, that's covered in administrative code, and that's kind of a catch-all standard for how good our surveys have to be. So it's not just a question of how am I interpreting the data, but once I interpret the data and I accept corners, how well do I have to be able to express the spatial relationship of those individual corners when I present that product to my client?
And Georgia is 1 to 10,000 for urban, suburban, and 1 to 5,000 also for rural. And we also, for the dimensions I gave earlier, are property corner relations of the property corners on your tract of land you survey.
Well, I put up our proposed in the chat and we went away from all of that.
Yep.
We left it up to the surveyor to determine that where they're working at that.
Nettie. Well, hop in, Nettie. Get Wisconsin there. Go Wisconsin there.
Yeah. So Wisconsin, so the way I always view our minimum standards is like, this is the minimum acceptable. This isn't a goal. This is like the minimum acceptable. So our relatively positional accuracy is under AE 7.06. So we still got the 1 in 3,000 in there, which is obviously pretty ridiculous. And that's why I always say minimum, right? Minimum. Angles to the nearest 30 seconds. I mean, that's minimum, right? Distances showed to the thousandth of a foot. What's interesting, we did, and Jerry can correct me on this, I think this was added with GPS coming in, is relative positional accuracy shall be the value expressed in feet that represents the uncertainty between points of the boundary of the parcel being surveyed due to random errors in measurements at a 95th percent confidence level. And you read that and you're like, what? Like, am I 95% confident that my GPS is working right? But then it kind of defines in the next thing, that just saying the maximum allowable deviation in relative positional accuracy between any two adjacent property corners may not exceed plus or minus 13/100ths of a foot plus 100 parts per million, which I think is kind of similar to some that other people have said.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with the confidence level areas and getting into all the chi-square stuff and everything is assuming that people are still doing least squares adjustments on their surveys.
Right.
Exactly.
And I mean, there's a few of us in here that I see our hair is gray enough that we know what those are, but there might be younger people that don't know what StarNet is or whatever, whatever we used to do our old least square stuff in or anything, things like that. So, and because I think all that came out of like GPS stuff, because the GPS, no matter what software you're using for GNSS work, it spits it out that way. And I mean, I use Trimble and Leica both actively, and neither one of them really demonstrate that to me the way I was used to it with the older versions of the software. It just is like poof, there it is, and I'm always a little gun shy on it with the newer stuff because you don't have to really. It doesn't seem like you have to work for it anymore. It's automatic.
In Georgia, we added a note for the GPS that discloses the precision of the GPS work done, whether either in relative positional accuracy, vector closure, or any other mathematical expression chosen by the land surveyor.
That's reasonable.
Rami, what's the ones you sent for in the chat from Michigan, it looks like a lot of survey map requirements. Is there much for kind of like what we're talking about, same boundary precision type
So
stuff?
there's a little bit of accuracy in there. Public Act 132 is the Certified Survey Act that essentially is designed for boundary more so,
Hmm.
but is been the standard adopted here. It's 1 part in 5,000, 500ths of a foot, which is pretty typical, a little hard to achieve, but typical. It talks a little bit about GNSS observations, especially when it relates to MDOT. So any MDOT observations, they're giving us a tolerance of 2/10 of a foot, which I think is actually quite generous.
Yep.
But for anyone that actually understands GNSS, like if you get 2/10, then consider that a good day.
Yeah.
So there's some stuff about like map projection. We have like the Michigan, what is it? The Michigan State Plane coordinate system, which is not the same as state plane coordinates. I learned that during my licensing exam.
Uh-huh.
'Cause the first time I took it, I was like, oh yeah, I know state plane coordinates, and then I realized that there was something completely different. Which it recommends that we use it, yet nobody does. Everyone uses state plane coordinates or local coordinates for a boundary. But yeah, I mean, I found the map standards is like been like the main driving force for like accuracy that we use generally for any survey, just because I mean, maybe because I just come from a background of boundary surveys that's what I use. But so yeah, and nobody does least squares adjustments. That's that's a very good point.
Yeah.
Can
We
we
did,
have a session another day on what he was just talking about the Michigan coordinates being different from
Yeah.
plane coordinates?
Yeah. Well, we kind of we had a email chain going that Jerry started earlier this week with Wisconsin, similar situation where there's some like localized coordinate systems. We have one in Las Vegas as well, and Frank's on here too. But we have what we call NCRS, so it's like it started with the city of Las Vegas, and he created basically a low distortion coordinate system, and so now it's been
Okay.
adopted by a couple of different jurisdictions in town, and so yeah, something obviously not the same as
Right.
state plane versus an NCRS type low distortion thing. The coordinates are totally separate, but still.
Yeah.
Something
We have some, like Tempe here has their own made up stuff. And they're all based around 300,000 each way. So all their coordinates it's mind numbing to go through them because they look the same numbers. And then we have Fountain Hills that's still running off of a 1980s ground traverse that's completely user defined coordinate system. Scottsdale used to have their own adjustment, but they have since given up and gone with the GDAX system, which is Maricopa County, which is tied very well to the regular state plane system. So,
Yeah, I know Philadelphia has its own system, makes us use their data, and I hate it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Jared just threw in the chat. Indiana has county by county coordinate systems now.
wow.
In
Yeah.
GCS.
And in Wisconsin, that's kind of been normal for quite a while. So we have our individual county systems where we pretend the world is flat in little pieces.
Yeah.
And I mean, we still have state plane, but I think most people moved away from that since the DOT moved away from that.
Yeah.
And we have our Whiskers network that's still free as of right now that the DOT installed, and all of us use those for our network base for the most part because it's super convenient.
Well, how are you? I don't know this. I don't want to sidetrack us, Trent. So you
No, you're good.
stay table it or not.
No.
But I'd be curious to know how we're all looking at how that's going to affect the new
Oh, yeah.
NGS garbage.
Somebody
Yeah, I
should have
know we-
invited Jacob Hack.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody should have.
He would have answered all your questions, and he would have done a better job than anybody here.
No joke there. I do like. I know we had started in Nevada. We had started with, for some reason, we started with I think 13 or something. We had started with like a lot in Nevada, and then and it's been trimmed down to just a couple as well. But I don't know how many LDPs we're going to end up with though.
Arizona has 48.
Oh yeah. Is that what you're going to end up with though?
That's what was approved.
Oh geez, holy crap! Well, there you go. One for every county almost.
Well, no, because we only have, we have 13 counties, something like that. No, it's well, a lot of it has to do when you get up around the Mogollon Rim, where you're breaking from the desert and going to the high country,
Yeah.
and you go from a couple thousand feet in elevation to 7,000 feet. So there's some legitimacy for it. I think it's extreme, but
Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember how many we're going to end up with, but yeah, what we started with what we're going to end up with is probably two different worlds, but and that'll be in another couple of years. Hopefully not, but
I believe we're getting Las Vegas, Reno, and then our original 3 state planes.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Frank. Yeah, I couldn't remember that too. It's been a minute since we chatted about it. But another one on here that let's see. I guess, does your state association have a manual of practice? That was another one of Jerry's questions on here. But we talked about APLS has one, and
If we go back,
BTR. But what you got, Jerry?
Back up a second.
Yeah.
Do I specifically put a must have map? Must have map.
Okay. Yeah, you want to go back to that one? Yeah.
Because I was surprised when in one of the, I don't remember if it was a Metric Monday session or whatever, a while back, somebody mentioned that they don't have to file their map of survey when they do a resurvey in their state. I thought that was interesting because in Wisconsin we have to, because it's a matter of public record once we do that. So that's kind of piqued my curiosity. I wonder how many other states didn't require that a map of survey be filed or recorded when you do a resurvey. Not creating a new boundary, but resurveying property. If you are required to create a map, and if you are to be required to create a map, if you're required to file it or record it in a publicly accessible location.
Georgia's a no.
Curious about that.
Yeah, Georgia is a big no.
No
recording laws.
No recording laws, and they have.
Oh, Josh froze.
Either he is deep in thought, or he's.
That's what I was waiting for before I said something. Josh froze. I was gonna say so. Oh, Josh, you're back. You froze. You just said big no, and then Georgia blank.
Yeah, my internet's gone wonky.
That's okay. Try again.
Now, Georgia, a no, but subdivision maps, when they are recorded, the roads are automatically public roads. And with all the utility work I do, we traced a lot of records from the surveyors because they're cool cats and they'll share with us. And we've had a lot of condemnations due to the fact they put pipes and power lines across roads that were never recorded, but the city's maintaining them.
Oh, interesting.
Oh boy.
Yeah. I was gonna say that. Go ahead.
It's a pain.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so California would be, and Rob can probably chime in a second too, or maybe Kyle, but California, they have to accept it. Even though you put it on a map, they still have to accept it. So sometimes there's not a letter of acceptance for that particular road too. So that
Arizona requires that too, and we deal with a lot of people put stuff on record of surveys that don't convey anything or grant anything.
Sure.
You think there's an easement there, and they don't. And here we gave them in the 2002 minimum standards. We gave them one out. They wouldn't let us use the word mandatory, so we said that if you go into a retracement survey and you find everything that was of record and was noted and right on down the line, you don't have to record. But that's like one time in 1,000. So so essentially we do have a mandatory recording this is out of statute where we discuss the dreaded material discrepancy, whatever that may be. But we did spell it out in our minimum standards that was that, if you find it of, just not of it, if you set a corner while you're doing a retracement, then it's mandatory that you record it too. So, but recording a survey here is you go to the county recorder and record it,
Yeah.
A couple are doing digital. Most everybody's still taking Mylar. There's no the only statutes that cover those are for font size, things like that, not
Yeah.
for,
Borders and map size. Yeah.
well, and 33105 covers monuments being set, what had the date of the survey, description of the track, standard survey stuff, and that's actually in statute. So that's not in our in our minimum standards. So
Nice. Yeah, Nevada, we require recording. Obviously, if you set a monument, so that's as when we get calls from clients, we're always going to set property corners, and we're always going to file a record survey. We're not the fence line staker or the 60D nail staker, those kind of guys. We only propose on setting property corners and filing a regular survey. So.
I mean, you can't survey just one side of my house for half the price.
Exactly. I just need the west line done.
That's a fourth.
That's the neighbor that I'm fighting with.
That's a fourth of the price. It's only one line.
Yeah.
That's a fourth of you're right, a quarter of the price, please.
25%. Indiana has kind of a, I don't know, weird recording. If you're creating a new parcel, you have to record it. But if you're just doing a retracement and there's not any, and I forget what the term, it might be that material discrepancy. If there's not anything way out of whack, and that's kind of each surveyor's opinion of whether it's out of whack, you don't have to record those.
Yeah.
But if there's something different, way different, then you do.
But are you still required to create a map that you give to the client?
Yeah.
What's that?
Are you still required to create a map that you give to the client?
Yeah, even if they're giving them a map, and even if you're resetting a corner, you don't necessarily have to record that.
Right. But you do have to provide a map to the client, or you
Yes.
you don't have
Yes.
to. Okay,
yes.
you do.
But
Okay.
you may not have to record it.
Okay.
Now that's how
If
Georgia
you're creating a new parcel, then you have to record it.
Yeah.
we don't record in Georgia, but we have to set property corners.
With every survey.
Yeah, every survey you have to set the corners.
Got it. And then you alleviate the creation of the map. So
it's very bizarre.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
Okay, but I guess I could ask this then, especially for you, Josh.
Yeah.
You can record it though, right?
Yeah, we can record. My
Okay.
push, we record anything we do because why not?
Right.
I mean, if we're going to give it,
Stand behind it.
Yeah, if you give it to the client, you need to stand behind it. So screw it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, I got a question
Go for it.
for Josh. So, there's lot 1 of whatever the subdivision is, and the original surveyor set 3/4 inch iron pipes with his tag at all 4 corners of a rectangular lot. And then somebody else comes along 10 years later and finds all 4 corners. Do they have to set their tag on top of his?
No. Thank God, no.
Oh,
Our
okay.
biggest problem is the new surveyor comes through with a 17-year-old crew chief that can push buttons, and he's half a tenth off, and he sets a new rebar with the cap on it.
Oh. Okay.
But as long as if you find everything and you're comfortable, everything checks good, and I'm very liberal with how the original survey was done and performed. So I'm kind of liberal of it's close enough. I'm not going to throw something else down to confuse other people.
Okay. But you're required to set a monument if, like, the southwest corner is gone.
Correct. Yes.
Then you're required to reestablish that point.
We'd have to, anything we reestablish or set, you have to either tag it with your license number or your COA saying you're authorized to survey in the state.
All right.
And that's similar to Arizona. If it doesn't have identification on it, you're supposed to add that identification to it.
And a new law in California this year was for rehabilitating monuments that you use as controlling elements in your survey.
Yep.
And filing a corner record to document it if that's the appropriate thing. But
Yep.
You find a original wooden 2x2 redwood 2x2 with a tack, but it's pretty well weathered and may not be what you'd consider permanent. Then you'd set your own pipe at that location with your LS number and on your tag, and then file a corner record for that here in California.
Does anybody have like restrictions on the type of monument you can set?
George, yes and no. Georgia's kind of liberal. It has to be 18 inches in length minimum. We don't have frost or heave. If it's a landlocked corner or militia district corner, etc., it has to be 5/8 rebar, 1-inch pipe minimum, or 4x4 monument. Our minimum size for monuments is 3x3. If that's what you want to set of pins or pipes.
In Indiana it's if it's a rebar or a pipe, it has to be 2 foot long. And then there's a weight per foot requirement. So basically 5/8 rebar is the minimum.
Yep.
And a 3/4 inch pipe, Schedule 40 pipe, is the minimum that you can use for a pipe.
You guys all use plastic caps?
So
variable.
Rob,
I'm
I heard
confident in my
that
boundary.
I heard you couldn't set plastic caps in California anymore.
Not if you're a good surveyor.
In Arizona, it's weird because I could take you out and show you ADOT monumentation that I did that was aluminum or even like brass, and they're completely corroded away, and the plastic caps in the area are still there.
Yeah, that is a peculiarity of the soil types and such, and I just hate plastic caps because I've gone through too many areas where we've had wildfires.
Yeah.
Yeah. You find the nice little 1-inch iron pipe or a 5/8 rebar with a blackened yellowish glob of goop on top of it.
Yeah.
So there are some situations where the soils will just erode the hell out of a metal monument.
Yeah. Well, that helps you remove some liability. If my LS number is not on it anymore, I don't know what you're talking about.
It wasn't me.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody must have moved it. The one I set was shiny.
So we had a local surveyor who always set aluminum caps. He died in 1972.
Oh wow!
And when we go out today, there's no in between. Either you find a cap that is immaculate, you can still read his name, his license number, everything in it, or it's just this white glob of powder and it just depends on the soil type on those aluminum caps, that it either didn't hurt it at all or it would just eat it up into nothing.
Yep. I would say similar for Nevada as well. We're definitely primarily, the old school was all plastic caps. Now it's pretty much.
Do we get extra credit in Nevada if we put them in an area and they glow from the radiation, or?
Yeah, right.
That's pretty interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I wanted to go. I jumped up right when you started to talk, Rob, about accepting like all of the property corners. So, and Mike can probably allude to this too. We both just recently took New Mexico's state-specific exam, and one of their requirements is that you must affix if there's a monument you're accepting, you must basically affix your tag to that monument that you're accepting. So sometimes you go to some of these monuments and you get like a keychain of nail or tags, wire tied to each one of these monuments because somebody's accepted it. So going back to Jerry's thing, when you're licensed in multiple states, having to know different jurisdiction requirements, but that's that happens to be one of them for New Mexico as well. So
the hardest thing I'm finding in New Mexico is finding somebody that where you actually file the damn things.
yeah,
You know, is there, they have requirements for county surveyors, but they don't have any county surveyors. And I've had the same problem in Utah too, trying to track down people that, you know, if you're in Salt Lake, fine. But some other areas, and you know, it can be really difficult. And it's I see that in New Mexico. I'm trying to get a survey. I'm finally going to get one recorded in outside of Las Cruces. And it, you know, county surveyor, no, he doesn't review them. You just file them, but they're supposed to review them. But
gotcha. Yeah. I get on that same note. I guess one of the questions, and it comes up in a couple of different ones. And speaking of New Mexico, and I believe in Colorado, what states require you to record your ALTA survey? So that's another one too.
In Arizona, that's the interpretation is that's a boundary survey, so it falls under the minimum standards, and you're supposed to set monuments and now you don't have to record the ALTA survey. A lot of times what we do here is we strip them down to a record of survey and record the record of survey. Some people just say screw it and leave everything on it and record the ALTA, but you're required to document monument and record the boundary. However you want to record it, that's up to you. But an ALTA survey, which is interpreted as a boundary survey here, which I don't know why it wouldn't be, but
yeah. What about Wisconsin? Anything from an ALTA standpoint?
I guess I would kind of take the same interpretation. I don't know that we've ever actually talked about that, but if you're doing a boundary survey, then that falls under the recording requirement. Right. And I guess a lot of times I do see people just filing the ALTA survey as it is, because I guess I've done that personally, because I'm like, why would I do all the work to take a bunch of stuff off?
Yeah, an ALTA survey represents a resurvey of a property, you know, the boundaries and stuff. Yeah. And AE7 does require that you file a resurvey. And ALTA says that whenever there's a conflict or a difference between the ALTA standards and the state standards, the more restrictive standards can hold. So therefore, ALTA surveys should be filed in Wisconsin.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I'm sure. Again, like licensing, 50 rules, 50 different states, right? 50 states, 50 different
That's
rules.
nice thing about having a catch-all there, though, because there's no question on it. It says it's got to be filed, it's got to be filed. Regardless.
I don't know about 9 states, but I'm licensed in 3. And what I have learned I've been licensed in Arizona and Nevada for a long time.
Yeah.
Like Trent, you know, I mean, I got licensed here in 2000, Nevada in 2004. So, you know, 20 plus years in both states. Yeah. And I've just learned that if you do a proper boundary survey and you're diligent about your work and you do what the hell you're supposed to do, you're not going to get in trouble anywhere that I've seen. It's the guys trying to slip things around or the biggest problem that we have in Arizona with that stuff is, you know, when you start getting into, I like California's rules that if you're creating new boundaries, you know, if you're splitting property or doing anything, you have to go through the process. In Arizona, they split shit up by deed here all the time. Some counties are, you know, there's a couple that enforce it. Maricopa County says, you know, because our statutes are 5 or fewer parcels before they elevate to having to be required to be a minor land division or anything that's observed there, that's, you know, checked by anybody. But most of there's maybe three counties that I know off the top of my head that require at least a ministerial review of those surveys and approval. Maricopa doesn't. They state right on their website that's between you, you know, and your client, and we don't even care. Yeah. So
in Nevada, we've been fortunate. Parcel Map Act of 1971, no new lot creation can be created without a map. So we've had it for, you know, 50 plus years. So
and I agree with that. I wish that it was like that, but in Wisconsin, it's like if a township is zoned, a lot of counties have zoning. Otherwise, actual subdivision is only triggered if there's more than 4 parcels. If it's under that, it's county by county. And so that's why a lot of surveyors in Wisconsin, maybe this is true of other states, is I kind of stick to the counties that I know the rules and how the process works, because everybody's a little different.
Yeah, every jurisdiction is different, and unfortunately nowadays it's almost like every week is a different different regulation at this point. So it's been frustrating to deal with for sure. I'm sure we all have the same requirements, but
Well, we do have some cities here that only the state says 5. A lot of cities only allow you 3 splits, but they also count the splits before that.
gotcha.
So if somebody, split down with still a little bit higher than, what the zoning is, you might be only allowed 2. Like if they took a piece of property and split it once and you bought one of those, you wouldn't be able to split that one 3. You'd only be able to split it twice. So they do that too.
Rami, anything kind of mapping wise for Michigan? For some reason I was thinking you were Ohio, but Michigan.
I'm in both.
Yeah, I thought you were. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I don't have my license in Ohio. I only have my license in Michigan
Yeah.
because I do. The only reason I go to Ohio is to do my PhD. That's it.
Okay.
If it weren't for that, why would I ever want to go to Ohio? Yeah, we have some beef, but no, in terms of like recording in Alta, I mean, I've never done it, and we only record surveys if there's a split or reconfiguration. That's the only time we ever record a survey. We have to set pins, so table item A for the Alta is always checked for us because our standards is we always have to set corners and we're doing a boundary. So,
Yeah.
But no, I've never recorded an Alta. I don't know if the title company that give it to does. I don't know if I'm supposed to, and I'm not doing it. I have no
I was gonna
idea.
say, not without your permission, but yeah.
I mean, yeah, but I haven't seen anyone even talk about that. Now, I haven't gone to a MSPS meeting in a while, so
Yeah.
that might be something I could always ask and just get more information on.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. I do a decent amount of boundary, but I don't talk about it. I think that's my main issue.
Sure.
Either on YouTube or like in person. Most of my conversations are about geospatial technology because that's what's cool and trending online.
Yeah.
So most of the boundary work I do, this is kind of strange I'm talking about it right now, to be honest with you guys.
You're a little out of the box.
I'm very familiar with it. I do it every day, but like I just don't talk about it online.
Yeah.
I don't get the same views on YouTube when I talk about parcel configuration versus what this new LiDAR sensor can do. So.
You just have to sell it better.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think you're right.
We're gonna wrap it in
You're
a bow better.
Well, look at this barbed wire I found. How old do you think this is?
Who's the San Diego surveyor? I watch his 10-minute survey things, and
Woolley.
Yeah.
Dave Woolley. Yep.
That's Orange County.
Yep. Yeah. That's awesome. Jerry, what's the next one? What do you want to talk about on the next one there?
Let's see. We kind of covered most of the stuff back and forth. I know that a couple of decades ago, I guess it was, that some states were working on manuals of practice for surveying. Different state societies were. And I don't know if that's fallen out of favor or not. At WSLS, we kind of looked at it for a while, but we never did anything with it. So I guess I'm wondering, do any of the state associations out there have a suggested manual of practice just in general? Or if they don't, are they being considered? And if they do, is it a living document and that it's being updated, or is it just a static? It's just we create it one time and it's sitting there. So any feedback on that?
Say that's obviously 2 decades ago. That's how APLS Arizona's started their conversation.
Well, our 2014 standards are just APLS.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily a practice manual, but they were. There's a few things in there that are more restrictive than what's actually required, and again, it only really affects APLS members theoretically, but it does give us those other documents if there's something that serious happens, other standards of care within the state. You know, we've got the ALTA standards, we've got the APLS standards, we've got the state approved standards. So we do have we can develop a little bit more, a few more weapons in there if we have to really go after somebody, but that doesn't happen very often. So. Nobody else, huh?
No other standards up there.
No other standards.
Anybody here from Missouri are familiar with Missouri? I think Missouri at one point had a manual that the state society put together, but I don't know if that's still active or not.
We have one in Georgia. It was static, and then we unstaticed it and updated it about 2 years ago.
Yeah,
And we
RTK
kind of
did?
set up a committee to keep revising it, reviewing it, and as new comes out, we'll revise it again.
So Missouri, oh, hold on, that says 24. I just went onto their resources page, but they got all of their conference handouts on there. You can go back for a couple of years on that.
Without being a member, they got access to that kind of stuff. That's
Yes,
kind of
sir.
surprising.
Yeah, right on the resource page.
I'm always surprised at the if a society has a code of ethics and they hide it behind the membership wall. You have to be a member to see what the code of ethics is for the organization.
They got the Land Surveyor's Index right on there. Board of Architects, PDH, Design Review. Yeah, nothing's jumping out right off there. You got a couple of years worth of stuff on there.
Do they have a member area on there?
I'm sure they do.
Because it might be behind the member area firewall, member area wall.
Yeah.
You can get to Georgia's from their website, but you can't get to their code of ethics unless you're a member.
Yeah, there you go. Prime example.
We pretty much just adopted NSPS, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
We looked at it. We're selling it to you, so if you buy it, we're making money. But
yeah,
if you want ethics, you have to join.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome.
So in the chat, our friend Rob Hanley posted up the SEAC guide to records of survey and corner records, which is it was produced by the County Engineers Association of California and the County Surveyors Group within that bigger organization, and it's a very good guide to the preparation of those documents. Yeah, Robert says it could use work. It could use a little updating, but it's not exactly procedures, but it's kind of this is how this works. And it's very, very good for people that are coming up to review that. I know that was one of the things that I had as a printed version back when I sat for my exam in 1996. And it just put everything right at my fingertips, so I wouldn't have to be looking up things in various locations or trying to fumble my way through the LS Act and the weird wording because it was more clear.
And I have been licensed in California since 2007, and I will tell you that's the first time I've seen this.
Serious?
Yes, sir.
Oh man,
I know.
Hang out more, bro.
And
Yeah,
being
right?
licensed, you're supposed to be familiar with all this stuff.
Well, no, we have the PLSS Act.
Yeah, it's
There's
not
another document. There's another
not
living document.
a codified thing. It's just a
Yeah.
guide that's
Yeah,
helpful
yeah.
information.
Yeah, no, there's.
Well, I shared that with my boss because he just got licensed there, and we're starting to tackle more work over there. So we had another guy we worked with, but he is now officially retired. So
Have you seen this guide before, Mike?
no, I just sent it to Ryan though.
See, that's what I'm telling you.
I'm not licensed. They years ago they tried to get me to get licensed there. I said the problem with being licensed in California is somebody's going to want you to work there, and I ain't. Not interested.
All right, Rob, this is a presentation at the conference in March about the guide.
The SEAC guide?
Yeah.
I think,
we have a committee meeting on Thursday. Conference committee meeting on Thursday.
I think that'd be a great opportunity to get Robert Hanley involved in that.
See? All right, Rob, you're in. You're in, and we're going to do it on the tech track side.
He's the one that said it needs work, so
It hasn't been updated since 2020.
no. And Robert worked for the city and county of San Francisco at the same time, and then also worked for Ian Wilson in Alameda County.
Yeah.
So he's been around the county surveyor's offices for a while, knows some ins and outs, that's for sure.
That's who we should have invited tonight was Ian.
Yeah. You'll have to catch him when he's not on his boat or
I know. I was just going to say the same thing. All right. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I loved my work with the county surveyor's office here in Arizona, but you have to take a vow of poverty too. So
right.
Oh gosh, Mike.
I resemble that fact.
I mean,
I love it. Look, we've already dropped a couple people. Jerry, one of the other ones on here was your PLSS state. If you're a PLSS state, are you required to tie to the PLS network? And I will say required in Clark County, no, but we definitely do like quarter breakdowns or sectional breakdowns, right? Like the Las Vegas Valley is based on sectional lands and those kind of things. But I will say up in Reno, the northern part of the state, if you do any kind of mapping, it must be tied to a PLSS corner and swing ties and those kind of things. So that's where I was kind of saying in the beginning, whether it's, state doesn't require, but, entities do require certain things. So I guess that's kind of a good question to we got 20 minutes left to kind of.
That's Arizona too.
Yeah, the PLSS corner ties.
If it's usually a subdivision regulation that requires that.
Yeah.
I never.
So a lot of it is like one corner, or like, I guess it'd be interesting to know how many people have to do one corner, or like in Wisconsin, we have to tie to two corners, so that we have alignment. So no, it doesn't matter what bearing base you're on.
Right. Yeah.
I never understood that, because if I'm doing a lot in a subdivision, I'm tying into the monuments of the block. Why do I need to show the section corners? Like we have that requirement here, and I never understood that.
Yeah,
there is an exception for that. Like in Wisconsin, if it's previously been tied to a PLSS line, such as a subdivision, you can tie to a line of the subdivision.
A junior line, basically.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's like the plat will obviously be tied to some section. Oh, sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. But they want us to tie the lots. So you have the description, which is just the lot of the subdivision, but then they also want to show where the subdivision is tied to which section corners, and
which could take half a mile.
It's irrelevant, I think. Like who cares
about
what section? Like, yeah, it's platted. Like you go with whatever is in the ground, and that's. That's what we have here in Michigan.
We're not required to do that here for a normal survey, but if you're doing a section breakdown, well, then you're.
Your description is calling for the corners too.
Yeah.
So,
but lot 101 of Green Acres shouldn't require you to go to the quarter in the center quarter.
Exactly. This is new too. This was like in the last 10 years that they did this, and it's just obnoxious, to be honest.
Well, I know in Maricopa County we do some of that, but part of the reason is morally just for land divisions, because and stuff like that. Because the assessors will request our CAD files when we do a plat or anything like that, because they use our line work. It's not mandatory, but what they do here is if you don't give it to them, they hold up the client's addressing indefinitely till they get the CAD file. So then you got your client yelling, hey, give them the damn CAD file. So I just include it with that now, but
like Nettie said, in Wisconsin, we've got the exemption where if you're working on or near a lot of subdivision that was tied to a public land survey corner, you can tie to that, and through that tie to the section corner of the section line. But you got to remember that you're putting a surveyor certificate on there that says I attest to the accuracy of all the information that's on this. So you're attesting to the accuracy of the ties that you made also. Well, I was on the Ethics and Standard Practice Committee. We had a complaint against an old surveyor in an area, and we investigated some of his surveys, and he did tie to a section corner, the same section corner for over 20 years. And he just kept tying to his other surveys back to his previous surveys. Now, over that 20-year period, the position of that section corner had changed because better evidence had been found as to where that section corner was located. So again, you're assuming, I see that tying to a section corner for every survey can be an onerous task and that type of thing. But you also got to remember that you need to clarify or need to investigate, make sure that whatever you're using as your intermediates to that tie, you're attesting to the quality of that information also in your surveyor certificate. So because the liabilities associated with that can be carried forward.
Yeah. Yes. Great points. Yeah, because somebody's always gonna just regurgitate what they've done, right? Today I was reviewing a particular ALTA, and we've done 3 ALTAs basically on the same parcel since 2022, and it's almost like and now we have a newer LS that just came on, and so he didn't know the other 3 years worth of stuff, so it was always interesting to kind of XREF in things and see his style versus what we had done the last 2 or 3 years. And so and what the field crews found, because we do the same thing, we reshoot everything no matter what, that's just what we do. And so it's funny to see what guys located today versus what they located 3 years ago. So it's
those of you that are in states where they're required to tie it to the PLS, can you use the center of section as one of your ties?
I was gonna say, because that's an interpretive point, right? Like it's, unless you're going to truly BLM corners.
Oh, it's even worse than that. It's even worse than that in Wisconsin.
Okay. Elaborate, Jerry.
Yeah, over about a 12-year period, we had 3 different sets of instructions on how to locate the center of section. Where it were
that's a whole Mentoring Mondays presentation right there.
Yeah, and state law. Yeah, and state law that overrode whatever the instructions said. Plus, you can never be sure about what the guy actually used out in the field. I mean, as to they might have picked an expedient way as opposed to whatever the instructions said at any given time. Yeah. So we're specifically, we cannot use, it says in there, we can't use the center of section specifically. But the other question that comes, it says original government corner, which everybody for the most part interprets as a quarter or a section corner, but there's some 16th corners that were set by the original surveyors.
Sure.
So the question that becomes is, if you can show that was an originally set corner, then that can be one of your legitimate ties, as per the law and that type of thing.
Yeah, we've had sectional breakdown with all the way to the 256th, and so Kyle threw in the chat a very loaded question for the last 13 minutes, and that is, how do we, maybe too broad of a question for this discussion, but we have 13 minutes left. How do we increase the standard of care of where we are?
Can I quickly elaborate on that?
Yes, please do.
So I can bring you guys down to 12 minutes. So I see a lot of these discussions on standards, and I frequently think, if nobody follows the standards, what's the point in having them? A lot of Alta standards. I really like the Alta standards.
Yeah.
I would say they're followed, from what I can see, about 10% of the time. Right. So if we're not actually following the rules that we're setting for ourselves and raising the standard of care, what good is it to have more and more standards? Enjoy your 12 minutes to answer that question.
So I do want to add to that. So, and Mike can back me up on this. So there's the self-policing aspect of this whole thing, right? But that has been now taken away in the state of Arizona. You're not allowed to self-police unless you're a harmed party to the said survey. So surveyors cannot turn surveyors in that particular aspect of it.
And to qualify that, that was not because of surveyors.
No, it was
That
not.
was
Yeah.
because of a home inspector.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So a lot of it starts with self-policing. And it can be just as simple as, I will say, off, kind of like without names or anything, but we had we have a couple of surveys that have been given to us by clients that don't even, it was stamped by a guy lives in California, but he's a Nevada LS for over 20 years, and he doesn't even meet our like NAC codes or NRS codes of stamp requirements. He still says he calls himself a registered land surveyor. We're not registered land surveyors in the state of Nevada. So there's that self-policing aspect of it. Just, hey, we're really good friends with one of the members on the state board. Here's a survey for you to review, right? Like, and it goes back to the self-policing aspect of it, and that's policing ourselves. And it's unfortunate, but it could be just as minute as that. Hey, you're not a registered land surveyor in the state of Nevada. You're a professional land surveyor. We have certain seal requirements that looks like a rope, and it doesn't look like a said, other state survey license. We had another one that the surveyor certificate doesn't even match our state standards, right? Like, there's those little minute things that will make another surveyor second guess themselves before they do something in another jurisdiction, which I think goes back to kind of Jerry's and the broad umbrella of this whole thing of you're licensed in multiple states, but doesn't mean you can practice in multiple states, right? And so it's that self-policing aspect of it that, as minute as it might be, down to a simple stamp that we're not registered surveyors, we're professional surveyors in the state of Nevada. And I think that goes back to your thing right from the beginning, Kyle, of like, how do we bring up the standard of care? And it's self-policing. Minute as it is. And if somebody's not going to get in trouble because they use registered land surveyor, it's going to be, hey, from the state board, you might want to check, NAC codes before you, or PLSS Act, or whatever the case may be, before you sign and seal a survey in another state, right? So that's what's going to lift the standard of care.
So to piggyback on that,
yeah,
registered land surveyor isn't an appropriate term for use in California either.
There you go.
So if the guy is licensed here and he's using that,
yes, sir.
God.
Sorry, we won't bring names up in this kind of shit.
The nice thing about Arizona
is those things.
Yeah, the nice thing about Arizona is there actually is buried in statute where it just says land surveyor LS.
Yeah.
And that question has come up, and we've addressed it to the board under a couple of different directors. And the general opinion is we don't really give a shit what we call ourselves.
Yeah.
So we just use I just use our professional land surveyor because it's just easier.
Yeah.
But my license does say that I am licensed as a registered land surveyor for Arizona.
Yeah. So the acronym after your name would be RLS.
Right.
And there's the alphabet soup after your name in certain states, right? Because some people are LSs, some are PLSs, some are RLSs. There's that.
When I see that on LinkedIn, they have like PLS, PS, RPLS, PSM. I'm like, it's all the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
The only state I know that it actually makes a difference is Texas.
Yeah,
Texas,
LS.
Yeah, LSLS or RPLS. Yes, totally agree with that, Mike. Great statement there.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Eddie, what do you think?
Yeah, I think part of the problem, or one of the things about the raising the standards and stuff is we've seen an attack nationally on the licensing boards. There's a lot of states want to cut the budgets for the licensing boards. Sure. And in Wisconsin, even though we have a licensing board and it does its licensing stuff, filing a complaint with the board is a very arduous task. They don't have the resources or the lawyers assigned to them anymore to pursue a lot of that stuff. Yep. So even though someone, and we're supposed to be self-policing to a certain extent in the state, to report things like that. But if nobody does anything about it, then if the guy is doing sub minimal standard surveys, there's no one to enforce it.
So there's not just a straight compliance officer at the board level.
Nope.
It'd have to go through 7 layers of things.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, one of the surveyors that's serving on the surveying section of the board.
Yeah.
His term ran out like 10 years ago,
And he's
but
still.
they've not appointed anybody new to replace him.
Oh,
You know,
Mike knows about that.
These are political appointees, you know, to a certain extent. So, and you got to get the state, you got to get the state organization behind, you know, candidates and stuff and like that.
Oh
And
my gosh.
it's one of those things, you know.
Well, we're
It's
trying to get,
unfortunate,
because
but
we have all these public members now, but there's nothing that says the public member can't be a member of any profession. So we've talked about that and tried to get another surveyor on the board that way by backdooring him through as a public member. But because people have asked me if I would do it, because I did apply before Dana got in there.
Yeah.
And Helmet for that matter. But I have found as I've gotten older now, even though I would still like to do that work, because of all the restrictions placed on it now, I have the director's ear a little bit, and I would rather have that and not lose that than go sit on that board and get nothing done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I say similar to Nevada, where I have, you know, I enjoy this much stuff. Like we have an, non-conflict, I forget what the hell, I forgot the words already, but if you're on the state board, you can't be on anything else. Right.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I enjoy this side of things more than like you say, Mike, being just, you know, pigeonholed onto the state board and not being able to interact with anybody else and do those kind of things. So non-conflict type stuff. So, yep. So what do you think, Kyle? I think that's, I mean, it's going to just require that kind of aspect of it, but to Jerry's point, like if you've got to go through 7 layers to even just say something to a state licensing board, that sucks too. But you know, I think go ahead, Nettie. No, go ahead, Nettie.
What is more effective is, you know, picking up the phone if we notice something, if somebody's slacking on something or missed something, because sometimes it's like we got some new surveyors out here, new licensed people. Like, you know, if it's not a habitual offender, like pick up the phone and just say, hey, you know, notice this, like you could do this better.
Great point.
Found this mistake you made. We all make mistakes. Just letting you know. Let's work through this. Like how we all elevate the profession is by elevating each other. You know.
Yeah. And maybe even, hey, I'm coming up with something different than you. Not, hey, you made a mistake here.
Yeah.
Hey, do we have time for us to get together and compare how we arrived at our different solutions?
And we have that in Nevada, where if you're a material discrepancy, you're required to call the other surveyor. So we have that aspect of it too. So we have those relationships in Nevada, thank goodness. But again, with only a couple hundred, you know, 650-ish licensed surveyors in the state and 280-ish in state, it's a lot easier than some of these other bigger states. But so we have a great working relationship with a lot of our surveyors in state. But so we can pick up the phone and make those conversations. But
you can't be afraid to call somebody.
No, exactly. 100%, Mike. Yeah, that's awesome. Couple of thumbs up. Go for it, Kyle. What do you think?
Helpful. I think that I'd like to see the surveying profession in California have some sort of requirement to improve communication skills of surveyors, because frequently surveyors are the least communicative people you could find.
Heck yeah.
And
what are you talking about?
There's only like 9 or 10 in the whole country that want to talk.
Yeah, I mean,
and they're all on this call.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're down to 12. Yeah.
In California, I've seen probably the greatest raise of standards of care in specific areas just by the different county surveyors coming in.
Yeah.
Saying like, hey, this is not legal. We need to hold ourselves to the minimum standards that, you know, the state has set for our license. And, you know,
well, that was Ian Wilson, you know,
I didn't want to spoil it.
I know that's Ian moving up to Northern California to really raise the bar.
Yeah. I thought I could get Rob Hanley's perspective on it, because he was
there you go
involved, but yeah.
Heck yeah. Yeah, no, it's great conversations.
In Georgia, we pseudo privatized our board a couple years ago, raised all the renewal fees to actually be able to have attorneys and investigators and actually kind of control the flow versus being part of the engineering board with the Secretary of State and have one surveyor representative and 6 engineers.
Yeah.
It's pseudo working out.
We got attacked, and Nevada got attacked by our governor and what they're calling the business industry. We dodged it during the 25 session. I'm sure it'll come back in the 27 session, but they're trying to wrap us up all under every board under what's called the business industry, and so.
And that's how Georgia was. Hairdressers were managed just like surveyors.
Yeah, it's gonna be similar. We're gonna have subgroups.
Yeah.
So it wasn't quite as bad, but yeah, we're fortunate to dodge it so far. But we know it's coming back up in 27 for sure, because it was started in 23. But so. Well, what else, Jerry? Anything else? I think we got to hit quite a few topics on that.
We pretty much didn't hit that last one about non-licensed land surveyors, but I didn't want to open a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah, that's another hour by itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that could be DOTs and utility agencies. I mean, that all of those have non-requirements for LS type situation. So, yeah, no, that would drag this on.
Like whatever damage the BLM